Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought we'd make this fun little Lawn Fawn smooth sailing birthday card. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off by using our Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. And these are the stamps and dies we're going to be using today. These are all from Lawn Fawn. And we're going to be using that anchor, the little boat, the lighthouse, and later on that sentiment there. And this is from the Smooth Sailing set and the coordinating dies. And then from this set, we're going to be using all those little seashells. And later we're going to be using Have a Happy Birthday and that little exclamation point. And this is from the On the Beach set. And I also wanted to grab those two birds as well from that first set. So I placed everything in my Misty stamp positioner, and I'm going to go ahead and ink these up using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And it's going to take a couple stampings because I do want to get a few more of the seashells, and I want 3 of the boats all together and 1 more of the birds. So I went ahead and placed those back in the Misty and stamped that. So now I have everything that I need here. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut these. So I've cut them into smaller pieces just so they'll fit through my little machine. And I'm going to hold them down with some purple tape. Now I'm going to run those through my Tim Holtz Sizzix Sidekick machine, and this is just a little mini die cutting machine. I'm going to place those in there and run those through. And you're going to see that that's going to leave a cute little white border all the way around these images. So I went ahead and I ran everything through my die cutting machine. And now for these little boats, I'm going to do some paper piecing. So I'm going to be using the Really Rainbow Petite paper pack. I'm going to use this paper here. And I want those stripes to go kind of on an angle for the sails on the boat. And then for the base of the boat, I'm going to be using the colors from that striped paper. So I'm going back to my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad. And I'm going to be stamping I really just want the sails on the boat here. And again, I want the angle of the stripes to kind of go from left to right. So I'm just selecting different areas of this paper. So one will be kind of the orangey combinations, one the green and yellow, and this last one kind of a blue and purple combination. And then from the striped paper, I'm going to pick the coordinating colors for the base of the boats. So I'm just going to need to stamp the bottoms here. And I have yellow, kind of a corally color, and this last one here is kind of a lavender color. So I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to cut these out. Now, if you don't enjoy cutting and paper piecing, you could certainly just color these in. So I'm just going to take the time to cut these out, and then you'll see that it'll fit right on the boat there. And I'm going to do the same thing for the sails. So I'm just going to coordinate the base of the boat with the sails here. And I'm going to mix and match these little sails, these little flags up at the top here. So I'm just going to set that aside for a second while I get these 2 sails cut out. And then I'm just going to grab a flag from this other little boat. So I'm going to cut that one out and place that on this second boat here. And then I'm just going to grab the little flag from this purple and blue combination as the flag on this first boat here. So I'm just kind of mixing and matching those little flags. So I went ahead and cut everything else out, and now I'm using my Lawn Fawn glue tube to glue all these pieces down. And again, although this does take a few minutes to do, I found that it was just a different approach than coloring these in. It gave it a little bit more of a whimsical look, I thought. Now I do need a colored little mast on the boat, so I'm using light gray and gray. And these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, so these are a water-based pen. And I'm just going to apply the lightest color first, and a little bit of that darker color to the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to use my blender pen, and I'm going to blend those 2 together. And I went ahead and I did all 3 of those. Now I'm using my Spectrum Noir Crystal Clear Sparkle Pen, and I'm going to do the sails on these. And again, this will just dry clear with a beautiful sparkly glitter effect. So now I'm going to use Scarlet Red, Bright Yellow, Light Gray, Gray, Wine Red, and Carmine Red to color the lighthouse. So I'm going to use the 2 shades of gray here. And again, just applying that light color first and then a little bit of the darker color on the edges. And then I'm going to pull those in towards the center, so that it will be, this lighthouse will be the lightest down that center portion. And then from the door, I placed a little bit of color at the bottom and I'm just pulling it up towards the top. And you can see that as if my pen gets too much ink on it, I'm just cleaning it off on that scrap paper there. And for the white stripes, I just put a little tiny bit of gray on the edges and pulled that in, just for a little bit of a shadow. Now here I'm using the 2 shades of the red. These are the Carmine Red and the Wine Red, and I'm just going to pull those 2 colors together. Again, cleaning off the pen if it starts to get a little too dark. And now for the light on the lighthouse, I'm going to be using that Scarlet Red and the Bright Yellow. And again, just pulling it in towards the center there. So there you can see that up close. So now with the light gray and the gray again, I'm going to do the anchor. And I'm just going to apply the light gray all over, and then that darker gray sort of towards the bottom areas of the anchor. And again, just pulling those 2 colors together. Now I'm going to use light carmine, light pink, and beige. And that's to do the shells. And I'm just applying a little bit of that beige and then the light carmine and pulling those together. And so I'm just mixing in the light carmine and the pink here and there with a little bit of that beige and blending these out. And I went ahead and did all the other 3 the exact same way. And here you can see those up close. So I'm going to set those aside. Now I have 4 panels here. They each measure 5.5 by 2 inches. And I'm going to take Peacock Feathers, Mermaid Lagoon, and Blueprint Sketch of my Distress mini ink pads. And I'm also using my Distress sprayer, which just has water in it. And I'm going to start applying my colors. So I'm going to just start with a really light touch here, and I'm going to apply all 3 colors just very randomly, and I'm not trying to be fussy in terms of blending it or anything. I'm just simply applying the color. Now I'm going to spritz that with my Distress sprayer, and then I'm going to blot that off with a paper towel. And between each layer, because we're going to be doing 4 layers here, I'm going to heat set this. So now I'm applying the second layer of color. Again, just very, very randomly here. And you'll see that as we start to apply these layers of color, you do get some of that effect of the previous splatters beneath. Now it will mute it out a little bit, but it still leaves a little texture there. So I'm going to heat set again. Now I'm coming in with the third layer. And we're going to just keep building up this color here. And then I'm going to spritz it again and blot that off and heat set again. And now I'm going to do one more layer, and that'll be the fourth layer. So for the water, I did different layers of color for each of the layers of the waves that we're going to have on the card. If that makes sense, I'll show you here in a second what I mean. So again, I'm spritzing it one last time. And you certainly don't have to do all these layers if you don't want to. You could certainly just do one or two layers and it's going to be just as nice. But I wanted to add a little bit more depth by the different layers of color. And you can see there that you get a really cool effect by adding these layers. So that had 4 layers of color on it. For the next panel, I'm going to do 3 layers. And for the first one, 2. So I went ahead and did that. And you can see there that you get the different colors. And as these dried, it actually got a little bit more intense. So now with the stitched wave border die set, I'm going to be die cutting the waves out of these 3 panels. And again, in person, the difference between these panels was a little bit more obvious than it is on camera. So now I'm going to run these through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and there you can see the 3 layers of color. And this fourth one I also did with about 2 layers of color, and that's for the inside of our card. So I die cut that as well. Now I have another panel from the Kraft cardstock that also measures 5.5 by 2 inches. And using the simple stitched hillside borders, and I'm using the one with the least amount of curve to it here. I'm going to place this on this panel, just checking to make sure the cut line is at the top, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Now I want to also cut from the neutrals cardstock, the gray color, and I cut a panel 4.25 by 5.5, and I'm going to be die cutting the stitched mountain borders from this, and I'm using the smaller one. And the panel, I wanted the panel to be wide enough so that I could die cut two of these mountain borders out of this one panel. So I'll just cut one, then I'll flip it around and cut a second one. So I'm just going to tape that in place for now with my purple tape, and then I'm going to run these 2 through my die cutting machine. Now I have that first one cut. And again, I'm going to flip that around and die cut a second panel as well. So now with this Kraft color, I'm going to be also cutting the sandy beach accents out of this panel. And I'm going to take the 3 smallest ones here. And again, you want to make sure your cut line is up at the top. So I'm going to tape these down, and then I'm also going, after I run these through, I'm going to die cut a couple more at the bottom there. So you can see there what that looks like. So now using my Vintage Photo Distress ink, I'm going to go ahead and add some color to this panel. And I kind of forgot that with the regular dye inks, you need to kind of pat it off on your either scrap paper or on your glass mat first before you go to your cardstock. Because with the oxides, you really don't have to worry about the blending. So just make sure you kind of pat it off and then come to your paper, so you don't get any of those like dark spots like I got there. But it's not going to matter because we're going to be doing some more with this panel anyway. So now you'll see here that I'm applying some ink right to my glass mat. I'm spritzing it with a little bit of water, and I have my fan brush here, and I'm going to spatter this entire panel. And that's going to give some nice texture to the sand here. And then just to make sure I don't smudge it, I'm going to heat set that with my heat tool. Now for these little mountains, I'm going to make these turn these into like a rocky ledge where my lighthouse is going to sit. So I want these to look like rocks. So I cut them down into little individual sizes. And then I'm using my Hickory Smoke Distress ink. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow up here at the top. So I went ahead and I did that for all of these little panels here. So I'm going to set those aside. Now I have a white Bristol Smooth cardstock panel in 5.5 by 4.25, which is the size of our card. So I'm using Wild Honey, Ripe Persimmon, and Abandoned Coral to do my sky background. I'm going to start off with the yellow color here. And I just want to see where I need my color to be shadowed. I want to add a little bit of a shadow there. So I'm just laying the waves down here just so I can see where that's going to be. So about halfway up. So I'm starting with the yellow color and I'm just patting it on my paper first and then going up into the sky area. So don't worry about that bottom section, it's not going to show. And here I'm just applying the ink to my glass mat first and then bringing it onto the paper, just so that I don't get any of those dark smudges. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the next color here, which is the persimmon. And I love adding this to a sky. I just think this is so pretty. And again, I'm just patting it on the cardstock below first and then applying the ink up above. And now I'm applying the darkest color sort of along that bottom edge here, the bottom area of the sky. Then I'm going to go back to the yellow color and just blend those out. So now you can see what a pretty sky we're going to have there behind those waves. So now I'm going to take my little seashells and my anchor here and apply them or glue them down to the sand. But before I do that, I want to take my 1/8 inch hole punch and I'm going to punch a hole right there at the top of that anchor. And I'm going to be applying some cording. So this is from Fawn, and this is called the Red Sparkle Cord, which I thought would coordinate well with our little lighthouse here. I'm going to cut a piece that's about maybe 8 inches long. I'm going to fold it in half and then feed that through from the front to the back, which will create a little loop there that I can pull these two little ends through. And I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit here. And I'm going to cut off the excess. I just need to keep maybe 1.5 inches there at the top. Now I'm going to apply a little bit of glue down to the bottom of this anchor and then tuck it in underneath the sand here. Now you could certainly leave the little tails on that anchor sticking straight up or cut them a little shorter, but I wanted to tuck them into the sand here. So I'm just putting a little glue on the back of that second little opening and I'm going to slide that down in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue all of these little shells into place. So I've got the last one glued in and you can see up close how cute that looks. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the waves to the back of the sand here. And I'm just using my glue tube here to do this, just so I can move it around a little bit if I need to. Make sure that everything is lined up here. Now these two panels will get lined up right along the bottom edge. And then for the next panel, I want to make sure that I don't put any glue at the very top of the waves because I still need to tuck my boats in there. So I want to leave enough room to be able to slide the boats down in between the waves there. I'm just going to position this one down. Again, using the glue just to give me a little time to slide these around if I need to. And I'm doing the same thing for the last one here. Just adjusting that just to make sure it's all lined up. So the next thing I want to do is place those rocks behind the waves here. So again, I wanted it to look like kind of like a rocky ledge or a little rocky island here that the lighthouse is going to be sitting on. So I'm just trying to figure out where I want these little pieces to be. I'm going to kind of tuck that one in front of that other rock there. And so now that I have those in place, I can go ahead and attach this entire panel to my card. So I'm using my double-sided 1/4" permanent tape from Fawn, and I've applied a good amount of it to the back here just to make sure everything stays in place. I'm remove the backing, and I'm going to go ahead and line this up with the bottom of that panel and tape this down. So now I'm just going to glue the little lighthouse down, but I decided that I wanted to just have it popped up just a little bit at the top because it wasn't laying perfectly flat with those rocks there. So I put a little bit of foam mounting tape there at the top and a little bit of the glue down at the bottom, and that'll just give it a little bit more dimension. Now I'm going back to my stamp set, and I'm going to grab the light for the lighthouse. It's just these 3 little dashed lines here, and I'm going to stamp that on either side of the lighthouse. And I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink again. Now I've got those 3 little birds, so I'm going to go ahead and position those down with some glue. So I glued all 3 of those on. And now for the sentiment, I want that sentiment that says, "Today is all about you." About you. I don't know how to say that, but you know what I mean. So I've gone ahead and placed this panel into my Misty Stamp Positioner, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. Again, using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'm kind of using a light touch here just to make sure that I don't make a mess now that I've done all this work. So that's why I use the positioner, just to make sure that it's stamped perfectly. And if it didn't, being in the Misty, I would have had a chance to stamp it again. So now I want to position my little sailboats in place here, and then I'm going to be gluing those down. And it was a little tight there, so I just used my tweezers just to lift that wave up a little bit so I could slide these into place. Now, this is my card, so it's a standard A2 size card, which will measure 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm using my bone folder to press down that crease. So now I want to do the inside of the card before I put that panel on. So I'm going to be stamping the inside of the panel with the "Have a Happy Birthday," which is from the stamp set that I showed you earlier. So now that I've got that stamped, I'm going to attach this little wavy border on the inside of the card, and I'm using again my 1/4" double-sided tape. So I'm removing the backing, and I'm going to attach that right along the bottom edge here. And I just thought that would be cute for the inside of the card, just to add a little something there. So I just want to make sure the crease on my card is folded nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that 1/4" tape all over the back. Then I'm going to remove the backing and attach this to my card. Now I'm going to take my Jelly Roll white gel pen, and I'm going to start to add some highlights here. And this always just adds a lot of interest to your card. Just kind of deciding here where I want all these little highlights to be. And then I did decide to add some little dots to the sand just for a little bit of interest in the sand there. You could have also spattered the sand with some white acrylic paint if you wanted to for a different effect as well. But here I just decided to use the little gel pen. And then I'm applying a little bit to the shells here as well. And then again, I decided to come in with the water. So at this point, I kind of thought I needed to step away from the gel pen, but I just couldn't seem to stop. So add as much or as little of this as you like. So there you go. There's my completed card. You can see there that we have the beautiful sparkle on the little sailboats. And it's just a fun little beachy scene. And we also have that inside panel done as well, which I think adds a lot to the card. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.